Hey everybody, we're back and we're going to start adding in some enemies, some things that will mess you up and make it hard to win the game. Here we got a classic sort of Goomba, if you know Mario style, enemy that's kind of going back and forth between two walls and patrolling. So a little patrolling enemy is fairly easy to make, but there's some complications in it. So we'll go over it together and see how that works. So first of all, you have to be able to place your enemy, and I find it very boring to manually place these creatures. So what I did was, I kind of like the coins. I wrote a loop that's going to go find a particular tile and replace it with the enemy sprites. So very similar code here. I'll show you what that looks like. Actually, I'll just mention that I'm calling this from the start block, on start container block, and I just call it place enemies. And then that looks something like this. So it's one of those 4-element loops, and it's looking for a particular tile, which I've drawn. And then I set a snake there, a snake. It's of kind snake, and I just make it so that it goes to that particular location, because I've got an array of all the locations of that sprite. And then I remove that location so it doesn't look bad, because that's not a great tile. And I then set my snake in motion. And just to be clear about what that looks like, I have one location. I don't know. Should I zoom in? I don't know. You guys probably get it. I got one location there. So that's going to be replaced with a little snake. And that's how we started it. And as you can see, it works quite nicely. Here's the code for how I am making my snake go back and forth. I have a forever loop that is telling my snake to check to see if it's kind of hitting the walls on the right or the left. And you can find these blocks here. You can find them in the scene drawer. And I'm just checking to see if the snake, if it hits on the right wall, that means I need to reverse my direction to go left, and I swap over my snake's image to look the other way. And if I hit a wall on the left, then I switch to the right and I start moving in the right direction. So that's what's making it bounce back and forth. So this is fine if you sort of manually place a snake, but if I want to have 2 of them, this doesn't work very well. I'll show you. I'll go and add into my tile map. I'll go grab the same placeholder, and I'll put a few more in there. And that's kind of the point of this system, right? I want to be able to say, I want a snake here, and I want a snake here, and I want a snake here. That's why I use the 4-element loop in the first place. So watch what happens when we start it over again. If I jump down, you'll see that the snakes are frozen. Or are they? I mean, they are, but why is this one working? This seems very confusing, but the answer kind of has to do with a similar mistake we used to make involving, sprite and other sprite in the overlaps block. The problem is that, we're making many snakes, and each time we call it snake, but we only have one variable. So the last snake that we make is referring to snake, and that's why this forever loop is only working for the last snake. It doesn't remember that the other ones were called snake as well. So here's what we can do instead. We can fix up this loop by adding in another 4-element loop, but this time we can find an array of sprites of kind snake. So this returns a collection of all the snakes, and this for loop will go through each one, and each time value will refer to a snake. And so what I can do is I can put this inside of here, and I can replace snake with value. And if I slot that inside, it's a lot of them. Hang on. So now this 4-element loop will go to all the snakes and tell all of them to do this algorithm where they're checking to see if they're hitting a wall and then turning in the correct direction. So let's zoom out. Let's see, do my snakes snake better now? Yeah, look, they're all working. So I can see that they're all animated and doing their thing. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you can make, they don't actually hurt you yet. You can probably figure that out though. I hope you have fun making your own patrolling enemies and maybe adding some interesting spice to them. Obviously collisions comes into mind. What about jumping on top of them versus hitting them from the side? What about putting some animations in there? You can come up with ways, I bet, to make it a little more interesting. All right, thanks everybody.